For those of you who were not here last week, if you care to see the beginning, we will show it to you at some point. But we're going to start and review a little bit of the video, and then we'll have some conversation afterwards.
Right.
This is about a man who started in France, became a Jesuit priest, but was also an evolutionist. And in the Catholic Church at that time, that was not something that was allowed. And they talk about, well, if there's evolution, what about original sin? And so we'll be reviewing a little bit of that, and then we'll then have some discussion. Jessica's going to lead us in here.
And I also wanted to draw your attention to, if you missed the first half, there is the link, this is the PBS documentary, and there is a link in the email that went out on Saturday, so you can catch up at home.
Yeah, and several people have told me that they have done that.
Will you be with me in a spirit of prayer this morning? God, we give you thanks for quiet, snowy mornings and the beauty that falls upon the ground when we see the snow everywhere. We give you thanks for these people who are gathered here this morning. We give you thanks for the ability to learn and discover and be curious and have new people give us new inspiration in our lives. We give you thanks for Junia for bringing this visionary to our attention, and we ask that you inspire us this hour with this man's life and his thoughts, and help us be inspired as we go forward in our lives. Amen.
All right, now we're going to start the video.
Yes.
What I want to ask you next time is, what was and what is your view of God?
Mm.
And I thought it would be really interesting. They talk about original sin. I read a book which I just love called Original Blessing. And I recommend it if you want to, by Matthew Fox. Some of us have read this already.
Thank you. It sounds familiar. When do you,
Original Blessing by Matthew Fox.
when was that written? Do you know?
Well, I'm not sure, but I've had a few years.
Thank you. Original Blessing.
Original Blessing. And this shows how the church said it had to be, dogma had to be a certain way, and yet it's changed. I heard recently an interview or a speech that Carl Sagan gave. And if you take a whole year from January 1st to December 31st, humans are probably in the last 20 seconds of the year. So much happened since the Big Bang, if one believes in the Big Bang, which I do. And look at what's happened to humanity and humans, and where are we going in the future? These are things to think about. Now, I would welcome, we have about 5 minutes, I think, until we have
10?
8 minutes.
8 minutes. Whatever, you know. So I wonder if you have any comments about what you've seen so far.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this, Hassan. An eye-opener for me on how we live our lives if we believe in something to incorporate change. The possibility of change in the future and stick to how we believe.
What a struggle it is to, why the church didn't learn from Galileo.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
amen.
Why the Catholic Church always feels like they have to be the protectors of everything stays exactly the same. That, I never understand that. Like, how do you win in that respect? I always say no.
And for centuries, of course, they were the Christian church.
Yeah.
So it means
I
that
think
this
it's
is the way it
also-
is.
I mean, it's
Yes.
not only the Catholic Church, I mean, there's this bureaucracy that has
Mhm.
all
Right.
sorts of incentives not to change.
Right.
They owe their
We've always believed this, therefore it's
Yeah,
true.
That's a good
therefore.
point. Think about just individuals and organizations
Yeah.
throughout humankind. One person.
We were there first, kind of, attitude, but what I have seen, in this, film, it validates what I have believed for most of my life,
Mhm.
that, you can't dispute the fact that there was a skull that had nothing to do with our particular knowledge of history printed in books from, say, 2,000 years ago. This goes so far back, and my niece, now living in Montana, in Bozeman, where they have skeletal remains, she's right on top of what we have been hearing about for years. And you cannot dispute all over the world what's found. But Peking man, wasn't that disputed later on? It rings a bell.
Probably, but haven't we all heard of Peking Man?
Yeah, I mean,
I have no idea that he was
he's the one,
responsible for that.
right? Me either. I never heard his name before.
How you
Until I saw this film, you know, I thought it was
Right.
remarkable. We've always heard about the
Mhm.
Peking Man
Sure.
as a fossil.
PBS, let's leave it to them, because this is not a Steven Spielberg happy ending. He kind of caved and tried to reconcile his time and place between the church and science. Fine, I'll give in, I'll write my letter.
And they still exiled him. That's what I was surprised.
Yeah.
After he gave in, he still had to be pushed
As
out.
an exile,
He sent him to China.
But how wonderful he was expelled, and look at what happened as a result of
Yeah,
that. I-
that's
yeah, That's really,
Looking for God's hand in things.
Don't you find it ironic that the Western world felt that China was expelling him? And it just
Right.
exposes
It's
the
weird.
underpinnings of the fallacy that the Western world is it.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
it turns out that it wasn't. Turns out.
But you know,
After-
Nietzsche, the philosopher in the 1800s, said that the Catholic Church promulgated themselves, and also all the different countries and the leaders and the kings and so forth. They used religion to control the people.
Sure. Political tool.
And I cannot believe that, you know, when they said, oh, we are defending this dogma for centuries and centuries, for 2,000 years, well, since the beginning of the Catholic Church. I cannot believe, I mean, these are also politicians in the church who use it. They promulgated this, that we have to believe all this, even though they didn't believe it, because they led very lives, as we all know.
and they made a lot of money in doing such a lot of.
And you know, it's sort of similar to politics today in business.
Amen to that.
Of course, we can say, why didn't anybody in Europe, the Catholic Church or anybody else, learn anything from Galileo to Teilhard? But
Yeah.
how much have we not learned since Teilhard, 100 years later?
What struck me and what I was talking with Greg about was, I'm reading a fictional book right now about the world wars from, anybody read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna?
Yes,
So this is a similar book like that. It's like following a woman that is part of the resistance in the world wars in France and right in the thick of all.
which,
of the-
what book is this?
This is called The White Lady. It's very good. I'll tell you later. But it reminded, since that's in my brain, because I've been listening to that book, and all this happened in 1931. So, I mean, imagine being alive at that time and having first massive war that killed so many people, right? And you thought it was the war to end all wars. And then, what is it, 10, 15 years later, there's another massive war. And in the middle of that, they've discovered a skull that says that everything that you've learned from the church is not the way things are, right? I mean, can you imagine what that must have felt like to be part of that common populace?
That was a cataclysmic shift in thinking.
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Destroyed the entire
And it makes me
society.
just really wonder, like, how did that affect people's, like, the ground that they stood on and, you know, metaphorically in their lives, to have so many major things happening. And then it made me wonder about right now, right? Like, are we kind of in the middle of that kind of ground shifting too?
I think we are.
Religion has lost its power.
Definitely are.
Yeah,
Yeah, but there's so many other things that are
a
shifting.
time when,
Wow.
everything we assumed was right is.
The institutions, right? We used to,
10 million people died during this war.
One of the things I
No
was,
reason whatsoever.
one of the things I was thinking about is, and I put all these things together in my head, but he said, all those people dying, there's going to be a good that comes out of this, there's gonna be something Remember what he said
Yes,
next?
for some reason, why was he so optimistic?
Right, but this is one of the things I thought about.
But they use.
I'm sorry, people at home can't hear if more than one person is
Let's
talking.
hear,
Yeah,
Because I want to hear from people at home before we say bye. Go ahead.
I was thinking about the fires, you know, we're so consumed, literally and figuratively consumed with the fires in Los
LA.
Angeles. But putting that together, what he's thinking about is, I'm thinking that nature is reclaiming itself.
Mhm.
And I saw that in, Yosemite, not Yosemite, but, Yellowstone. I was there in the spring after the huge fire in Yosemite. And there were, not Yosemite, but Yellowstone, all of these trees that were bare, and underneath was the most magnificent display of spring flowers that I had ever seen, and they had never seen before. Because the fire unleashed all of those pods, all those seeds
Wow.
that were,
The
that had
ashes
not been
feed
able
the
to grow
next,
before
seeds.
because of the cover
There you go.
before. So it's really interesting to think about that.
Yes, thank you.
And I think that's kind of what he was talking about, that the
Please,
earth,
just one thing,
the
Andy
creativity.
and JS and Nancy, please let us know, what does this mean to you? We'd love to hear from you. If anybody's still there.
I am here.
Hi.
oh, Andy,
Yes. I personally can relate to it because towards the end of the year, I had a lot of losses, and thinking about the short time that these things happen, it's amazing. It's you would think the year is ended, it's closed, everything is coming to an end, and all of a sudden things, you talk to a person, the next day they are deceased. It's overwhelming, and it can be a devastating thing that can regress, whatever your positivity is, if you don't take care.
Thank
So
you. Yeah, finding positivity and hope even in times like
I
this.
didn't understand what he said.
well, we'll see the end of this film next week.
Yes, and we don't have very much less. We don't have very much more, I'm sorry. We'll have more time to talk.
We'll see a little bit of what we've seen before. We'll sort of start here because there'll be some people who didn't see the whole thing. And some of you may have seen it at home. I've seen it about 3 or 4 times.
What is the name of the?
But every time I see it,
The name of the film
there's
itself,
something new.
other than
How
his
do, how do
name,
you,
let's
how do
see.
you access it?
It's on
It's on
PBS.
look at the latest messenger.
She said it, Jessica said she put it in the spiritual
Spiritual life
enrichment,
thing, I think it came yesterday.
spiritual enrichment mailing yesterday.
And through your
A
cable,
link to it.
whatever Comcast or just online, I think it's all for free through PBS. It's not something you have to pay for.
Until May, apparently it's free.
You can YouTube it.
Okay,
Or just wait till next week and come back.
well, it'd be nice to be able to review it again.
I have found it very helpful to review. And I've learned something every time I see it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
This is such a brilliant film. Was this created by the Jesuits? Or who?
I don't think so. Probably not.
Atheist scientist. I mean, the subtitle is Visionary Scientist. So just look up Teilhard, Visionary
But
Scientist.
but one of the sponsors of it, and it says at the very beginning, is a Jesuit foundation.
Right.
So
That's interesting.
that's one of a number
Did
of
you see some of the people who were quoted? Were on some priests from Georgetown
Yeah.
and some other.
They've come
Yeah,
around.
and I mean, now the other thing is that the Pope in 1950, remember that year? We were probably most of us alive.
They were 5 years old.
Whatever, but then the Pope said evolution probably happened.
Probably.
The
What
current Pope said, of course. So
Things change really rapidly.
things change,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
If we allow them to.
Right.
That's right.
Of course, we have.
Everything's changing rapidly. Every minute, every nanosecond, things are changing more rapidly in this world.
That's right.
But we
How
will
many of you are aware of the Big Bang?
Heard of it.
Yeah, sure. Okay. How many of you believe it happened?
Well, we don't know.
Makes sense.
Oh, we weren't there.
We don't.
I mean, it's
Really,
little-
that's just,
it makes sense though to me.
it makes sense to us at this time.
We don't have
This
this.
That's a
time,
good statement.
Yes.
Compare theories.
Who knows?
Some theories have got good ideas to back them up, and other theories don't have as many.
That's a really interesting point.
Well, you have to ask yourself, well, what was there before then?
Nothing. Or was it
Well, where
God?
did this come from then?
Or was it energy?
Well, yeah.
There was something, maybe there's no beginning and there will
E
be no
equals
end.
MC squared?
Was there just a
That's
block
true.
of math that exploded
But
and it's still
isn't
expanding
it,
as we speak?
isn't it possible that with our arrogance, we think we have to know? And frankly, I am at peace with the fact that there will be some things of that nature that I will never know because they are unknowable, and I can accept that.
And that's all right.
Isn't that fun though?
I can accept that.
We're always gonna find something to find out.
But we can,
So-
yeah, we can still seek.
It won't
We'll
stop.
we'll never have to stop seeking.
But beyond that, I can live with the fact that, and that's where God comes in.